Perhaps the most controversial subgenre in filmmaking is the biopic genre, short for biographical motion picture, which is very straightforward in concept. A biopic tells the story of significant historical figures, whether it's the story of their lives or of the most significant moment of their lives. Politicians, scientists, inventors, actors, advocates, athletes, musicians, journalists, ship captains, airline captains, Walt Disney, Mr. Rogers, a lot of movies starring Tom Hanks, but it's certainly nothing new. In fact, some of the earliest motion pictures ever made were biographical. One of the first biopics, 1912's Custer's Last Fight, would not be the last film made about George Armstrong Custer. He would be portrayed in 1940 by future President of the United States, Ronald Reagan, looking absolutely nothing like the way we know Custer, and was then portrayed the following year by the actor sitting on the horse right next to him, Errol Flynn, in 1941's They Died with Their Boots On. A spectacularly romanticized account that did little to no justice for actual history. Yes, just like the genre itself, the reason why it's often controversial is nothing new either. Biopics are notorious for being inaccurate. By no means whatsoever is this the only problem with biopics. Another common problem is miscasting. Bad enough in general, but especially worse when depicting real figures, whether it's Elizabeth Taylor, played by Lindsay Lohan, Nina Simone, played by Zoe Saldana, or Genghis Khan, played by the Duke. Casting the wrong actor in a biopic is, frankly, offensive. Another common problem is the cramming in of biography, which can result in a film that, let's say for the sake of argument, is accurately told, but feels drawn out and out of focus. 2014's The Theory of Everything depicts Stephen Hawking's success and his illness and his relationship with his wife. Three deeply different aspects of his life, which can make for a narratively bumpy ride, switching back and forth from theme to theme. Of course, another common plot hole is that they usually end anticlimactically, not to mention if the subject of a biopic is for whatever reason controversial, the biopic itself will be controversial regardless of how well it was made. But presenting a biography inaccurately still seems to be the biggest and most common problem with biopics. Well, it's not for nothing. The reason why filmmakers fudge around with biographies is to make a better movie. The real Mark Zuckerberg was not dumped by his girlfriend before he created Facebook, but it made The Social Network a more dramatic movie. The real John Nash did not have visual hallucinations of other people, but it made A Beautiful Mind a more entertaining movie. The real William Wallace did not wear a kilt because, well, kilts did not exist in the 13th century, but they are famously associated with Scotland in the 20th century, so they made Braveheart a more memorable movie. In other words, these inaccuracies made these movies better movies, more engaging, more suspenseful, more satisfying, and only at the expense of the biography. It always seems to come down to a struggle between history and art. A motion picture is a form of visual storytelling, whereas a biography is a written account of somebody's life. They don't exactly complement each other. In general, history and art have always had a frayed relationship. For example, many famous paintings depicting significant historical events are not very accurate either. An accurately filmed biography might result in a movie that is boring or uninspiring, or maybe even confusing to a general audience. It might also result in a 13-hour-long feature. So to prevent these and other snafus from spoiling the project, filmmakers will reliably resort to twisting, omitting, or substituting the truth for the benefit of the movie. Which raises the question, does it matter if a biopic is inaccurate? Well, that depends on what the audience wants. Not everybody goes to the movies for the same reason. There are three main reasons why somebody would watch a biopic: to learn about the subject, to see a dramatization of the subject, or just to watch a good movie. To test out each of these reasons, let's focus on one biopic in particular, 2018's Bohemian Rhapsody. This is a biopic about the band Queen, and more centrally, about its lead singer, Freddie Mercury. In Bohemian Rhapsody, Freddie Mercury joins the band after introducing himself to Brian May and Roger Taylor. In reality, they'd already known each other before playing together. In the film, the band sells their tour van to fund their first album. In reality, they didn't have to fund their first album at all. They also didn't buck heads with a record executive named Ray Foster because he's a fictional character. We Will Rock You was not written in the 1980s. The band did not break up at all for any reason, let alone because Mercury wanted to go solo because other members of the band had released their own solo albums. Since they never broke up, they didn't reunite either. Just before playing Live Aid, Freddie Mercury was not diagnosed with AIDS before the big 1985 concert, but rather 2 years later in 1987, and even after he was diagnosed, he did not tell the band. The scene where he reveals his terminal illness and they all tear up and hug and gaze at him with the knowledge of his mortality, none of that ever happened. It all made for a better movie at the expense of the biography. So then, if you watched Bohemian Rhapsody with the intention of learning the actual account of Queen, then you were hoodwinked. That's not what you saw. If you watched it with the expectation of seeing a dramatized version of Queen's biography, then you probably got what you wanted. Practically everything else about the film is accurate. The sets, the wardrobe, the musical instruments, the likeness of the actors and their performances, all of those things were accurate. And finally, if you watched Bohemian Rhapsody simply hoping to see a decent film, then the worst thing you could say about it is that it's kind of formulaic. And that's probably the best way to approach biopics. While there are a few that are accurate and admirable in the telling of their subject's story, most biopics are not. When history and art are married, art always seems to win. If you are honestly interested in a person's biography, a better way to see it on screen would be to watch a documentary instead. True, not as dramatic or thrilling or Oscar buzz generating, but at least they are a bit more accurate than biopics. Have you seen any biopics lately? What's the most inaccurate biopic you have ever seen? Let it be known in the comments down below. And thanks for watching this video today.
Bring me to drink, and make haste, vermin!
Tempting.
Tempting but unwise, my brother. Listen to me.
There are moments for wisdom, Jamuga, then I listen to you. There are moments for action, then I listen to my blood. I feel this Tartar woman is for me. My blood says take her.